You're listening to the Heavy Duty Parts Report. I'm your host, Jamie Irvin, and this is the podcast where you will get expert advice about the heavy duty parts you buy and keep you informed about what's happening in the industry. This episode is sponsored by Full Bay. If you own or operate a heavy-duty repair shop, you should check out this game-changing cloud-based solution. And you really can have it all. Efficient techs, faster invoicing, better inventory tracking, and more time with your family. To learn more, go to fullbay.com/HDPR. That's fullbay.com/HDPR today. When you think about lowering your cost per mile, you probably think about reducing fuel costs. Maybe you're thinking about tires or your brake shoes and friction lining. Today, we're going to talk about your spring brakes, a.k.a. your brake pots. Can you actually lower your cost per mile by using a higher quality spring brake that perhaps cost you more upfront? To help us answer that question, I'd like to introduce you to Rick Deane, International Sales Manager at MGM Brakes. Rick, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks, Jamie, for having me on. Appreciate it.
MGM has been manufacturing spring brakes for a long time. Rick, can you give us a brief history lesson about the role MGM played in the development of the original spring brake?
Well, Jamie, MGM was the original inventor of the spring brake back in 1956. Commercial vehicles back then, once they lost air, would have a hard time stopping. And this was the impetus for the development of the spring brake actuator. Our roots started out in Cloverdale, California, where we still have a manufacturing plant today, along with Murphy, North Carolina. So at MGM Brakes, all we focus on are spring brake actuators and our e-stroke electronic brake monitoring system. And all of our products are manufactured within the United States, as I mentioned, in Cloverdale, California, and in Murphy. And we've been around for over 60 years doing what we do best, providing a safety-related product to the commercial vehicle industry.
So how many spring brakes do you guys actually manufacture? I've heard a couple numbers thrown around, but I'd like to hear it from the horse's mouth.
We manufacture hundreds of thousands of spring brakes a year. We have currently about 7 different models that we manufacture. If you include all the different sizes with those models, we have over about 130 all. And in the next few months, we're going to be releasing a brand new product called our LTRX, which is going to make 8 models.
Wow, that's exciting. So, Rick, what kind of working environments does an ideal MGM spring brake customer work in, and why is that so important?
Well, Jamie, over the last 8 to 10 years, we focused a lot of our efforts on the vocational markets, the severe duty markets, where we find our product works best, where they need a reliable, durable product. And the MGM spring brakes that we can provide into that market have been very successful. Some of those markets that we focused on are the refuse, cement, construction markets, military, anything where a severe high-duty cycle is required. We have specific products that we recommend for those markets because they tend to last and do extremely well. And the fleets and customers and users are happy with those products. So it's been a very good market for us. We've grown it substantially in the last few years. And this is where we focused on are these vocational and also some of the smaller niche markets that require specialized product in order to make that application work properly.
So these more severe duty applications, obviously you had to do some reverse engineering. You probably looked at a lot of failures and then you had to come up with some solutions. What kind of solutions did you come up with?
Well, one of the things that we came up with that we looked at was in the refuse industry, the problem of oil bleeding into the compressor airlines and contaminating the airlines, eventually working its way through to the rubber diaphragms on the spring brakes. We found typically the oil would break those rubber diaphragms down and cause the brakes to leak. So what we did, we developed a brake with we call it our skim neoprene brake or diaphragm, which resists oil that penetrates that spring brake through the air system. And it's been extremely effective in reducing the failures on refuse vehicles and in the refuse market. Our tube brake also helps seal out contaminants that enter from the environmental factors causing corrosion and premature failure. So we've done a lot of things, including combine something we call corrosion fighter into our products, which makes the spring live longer and not prematurely break. So we've done a whole lot of research in the last few years, and a lot of it has been geared towards corrosion because that is one of the biggest problems that we see in North America today with commercial vehicles.
Yeah, one of the things when I talk to fleets and repair shops, the broken spring, and that seems to always have to do with corrosion. Also, though, a lot of times the spring brake where it mounts to the truck is the mounting bolts or even the actual housing is cracked. And what steps did you take there to address that issue? Because I'm sure in those severe duty applications like refuse, like maybe oil field or logging, you saw a lot of that.
One of the brakes that we've introduced to try to avoid mounting studs pulling out or cracking around the NPC is we've introduced a product with welded mounting bolts on the service side of the brake chamber that attaches to the mounting bracket. And what we've done, we have a special elongated head on a bolt that we weld in there so the constant vibration or going through the vehicle does not start to make that bolt pull through or crack around the head. And that's one of the things that we found has been very effective in logging, in heavy vibration applications to avoid that sort of failure.
Awesome. When we talk to clients about these different, features and benefits, some of them, they think, okay, that's great, but like, how does it translate into a benefit to me? When you talk to a customer, what is the kind of the big idea that is kind of backing all of those features and benefits that MGM Brakes is like? How do you maybe bring it down to one thought about what your company is all about?
Our company is about problem solving. We provide brakes that solve problems that the end user is experiencing. And we have, this is why we have a very thick catalog of spring brakes and, 7 models with a new one coming out, 8 in total. And altogether, we've got about, with models and sizes, about 130 different brakes that we can offer. And, they all fit a specific scenario or a specific failure mode or required size. And we've introduced these different models in order to be a problem solver to the end user and any issues that he's encountering.
Another thing that's interesting about your company is this is all that you focus on. A lot of other suppliers, they're manufacturing all different kinds of parts, but MGM is just about brakes. And that, to me, means that if there's an issue, there's a problem you're having, who else do you want to go to than the people who live, breathe, and think about brakes, spring brakes all day long?
Absolutely. And, being the founder of the original spring brake actuator, that's what our company does best. We're experts in our field. And, we look at this spring brake as a safety-related product. A lot of times today, it's looked at as a commodity. We view it a whole lot different. You're talking about very heavy commercial vehicles and the excessive weights that they have. They need to be able to stop safely, and being able to brake properly is a prime concern for us. So everything we do is based around safety and solving problems for the end user.
You're listening to the Heavy Duty Parts Report. I'm your host, Jamie Irvin, and we've been speaking with Rick Deane, International Sales Manager at MGM Brakes. Rick, when I talk to my customers about lowering cost per mile, I always emphasize the importance of calculating not only the purchase price of the part, but also the labor and the downtime. Can you share an example of where MGM was able to significantly lower the amount of labor and downtime a customer was experiencing by using your product?
Well, Jamie, we have a large international fleet in the refuse industry that uses MGM products, specifically our skim neoprene brake, and they found that brakes works extremely well for them. They've got thousands and thousands of trucks, and they've chosen to use MGM because the reliability that they've had with the product has been very, very successful. In the last 3 years, I believe their warranty rate has been 0.2%, where if you look at a refuse vehicle or a refuse fleet, that is an extremely low warranty percentage. Some of these trucks are making anywhere from 5, 10, 12,000 brake applications a day, depending on their location and their route. So it's very important for us at MGM to be able to provide a product that works well for that customer and has served them well in order to keep their fleet up and running. And that's one of the major things that we talk about is downtime. Unfortunately, sometimes that calculation or cost is not looked at as strongly as it should be. And this is one of the things that fleets, hopefully realize, that the downtime is important. The cost of labor is important. And all of those costs add up if you have repeat failures with your product. So what we've tried to do is introduce this skim neoprene brake, which has been very, very successful in the refuse business, in order to try to keep the trucks on the road. And we've done a good job at doing that. And the fleet continually uses our product. It's specified on new equipment purchases and also as replacement parts. So from that perspective, we've done a good job with the product that we've specifically designed for the refuse market.
It's interesting. One of the questions I ask customers is, how can one spring brake cost $50 and another one cost $150? How would you answer that question?
Once again, we manufacture in the United States. We source our major components here in North America. So, there's additional costs to doing that. We don't have the cheap labor. We don't have the low cost parts that we're using. A lot of the components that we use are premium components that goes from our NPCs that we use, the springs, our center seals, the corrosion fighter technology that we put into the brakes. So there's a lot of different things that come into play when you're talking about cost and the cost of building a product. And what we like to think is that we don't try to minimize the cost of the brake, but we put the products in there that are going to make the brake work as best as possible and last as long as possible, and make the spring brake as durable as possible for the end user. So this is the difference between sometimes a high-cost product and a low-cost product, is how the product is built and the components that you use to put it together.
I use this little slide in one of my presentations when I'm selling your product, and it's entitled "The Math Looks Strange." And I have a picture of a generic spring brake and a picture of a premium spring brake, and then I have two columns beside them. Now, the purchase price for the generic spring brake is $50, and the purchase price for the premium spring brake is $150. And that sticker shock, oh my goodness, that's 3 times the cost. But, the math looks funny on a generic spring brake, because when you factor in, let's say, $50 per wheel for labor and $50 per wheel for downtime, over a 3-year period, that generic spring brake will probably be changed 3 times, every 18 months roughly. So you'll do it on day 1, you'll do it in 18 months, and then you'll do it in 3 years. And that now costs you, when you add up all those costs, $450. But with a premium spring brake, even though you spend $150 up front, you only have to do it once. So then the total cost over 3 years is $250. And so when I ask the customer to look at a $200 a wheel savings, roughly, and then start adding up how many wheels are in his fleet, you can start to see the math very slowly have its impact, where the reality is, you put a premium product on, you have less downtime, less labor cost. This is going to significantly lower your cost per mile. And for every fleet, for every repair shop, that should be the goal. I'm sure you agree.
Absolutely, and you're 100% right, and your math is pretty good. We have a brochure that we've put out. It's called Pay Now or Pay Later. And that kind of goes through exactly what you just done and breaks down the steps and the costs for the replacement costs for the different time intervals that you're going to have to change that product out compared to an MGM brake. So you're right. It's not the upfront cost that counts. It's the overall cost per mile or the cost of ownership that you're looking at when you purchase anything. And I think at MGM, our product gives an excellent cost per mile and excellent benefits from a safety perspective as well.
Now, the trucks that people are repairing are changing, and technology is playing a role in that. Can you tell me about the electronic monitoring systems that MGM manufactures? Because you mentioned that at the top of the show.
So we manufacture a system called eStroke. eStroke initially came out probably around 1999, 2000, and was aimed at transit buses because the law says that every day you're supposed to visually inspect your brakes. So on a low-floor transit bus, there's not a way to do that. So what the eStroke brake monitoring system does, it's a monitoring system that will tell you if your brakes are overstroking, dragging, not functioning properly. And we have two different types of systems. We have one for drum and we have one for air disc, which we released in 2012 and has been very, very well accepted in the marketplace. Especially in the transit industry where we have most of our eStroke sales. And with the eStroke air disc system, it can also tell you when you have a dragging brake from the adjusting arm in the caliper when it's stuck and it doesn't return. So on an air disc brake, you cannot physically look into the caliper or see the push rod, physically see the push rod. So the eStroke brake monitoring system is a great system in order to determine if your braking has any issues, and it's able to pick that up and to determine what the fault codes are. Once again, Transit has been our biggest supporter of that product, although we've had eStroke on highway tractors, garbage trucks, fire trucks. There's a wide gamut of applications where eStroke has been used, and the market for this system is wide open. And the more we look at brakes and the issues that fleets have with braking, the more eStroke comes into play.
You know, it's interesting. As you were describing this product, I could literally hear how safety and solving problems was literally baked into the development of the product. And I love it when somebody, says, hey, this is what our company's about. And it's easy to say that, but then do you back it up? And it sounds to me like MGM is backing it up every day with every product that they make. That's fantastic.
And that's our goal at MGM is to be a leader in the spring brake market, but also to be a leader in providing a product that's a safety related product. And as long as we can do that, we feel that we're doing our job and solving problems. I don't think there's a better spring brake out there than MGM, and I'm a little bit biased, but that's the way our company, we view our company as a market leader in spring brakes.
Now, when we were talking about generic spring brakes and their service interval being around 18 months, one thing that we haven't really articulated is the warranty periods for some of your products, because I always find that interesting. We look at this premium product and we talk about lowering cost per mile, we talk about labor and downtime and all that, but you guys really back up your product. What are the warranties for your products?
It depends on the application that you're using and the model of brake that you're using. For instance, if you're using our standard TR product on an on-highway application, the standard warranty is 4 years. If you go to a tube model, a TR tube model, I believe it's 5. With a piston brake, it's 6 years. So the warranty really depends on the model brake that you're using, as well as the application that's involved. We went back in 2016 and reevaluated our warranty policy to meet the market demands. And, it's located in our catalog as well as on our website. And it lays it out by the different markets and also the different model of brakes that being used for that specific application.
But the point that I wanted to really focus in on is that you're on highways for a year and then it goes up from there. And so even in our calculations at an approximate savings of $200 a wheel, that's on a 3-year interval. And I did that on purpose when I put my slide together because I wanted to say that, look, there's also this margin of additional warranty time that's going to further reduce the total cost for you. So, I mean, this is a really premium top product. And once people really start to figure that out, I think that there's no selling involved because it's just obvious that this is the solution that's going to really help them. And I've sold your product for a couple years now. I worked with one of your sales reps out west in Western Canada, and we've had some good initial success. And I just love seeing the benefits that it brings to the fleets. And, I know how difficult things can be in business to keep a business profitable. And this is just one more way that you can lower your total cost. And that has a direct impact on the bottom line. I'm sure you take the same kind of satisfaction as I do when you hear stories like that.
Yeah, one of the things that we thoroughly enjoy is that when a fleet comes to us and say, you know what, your product has really performed well. I haven't had the same problems I was experiencing. And you know what, we appreciate the products that you manufacture and the thought and the engineering that you put into them. And from that perspective, when you hear that feedback and that comment, I mean, it makes you feel that you've done your job and that you've helped that customer, not only to keep his equipment on the road, but to hopefully make his business more profitable in the long run and also make it safer. And this is our goal at MGM, to provide problem-solving products to and give solutions to end users that they just don't know about.
You've been listening to the Heavy Duty Parts Report. I'm your host, Jamie Irvin, and we've been speaking with Rick Deane, International Sales Manager at MGM Brakes. To learn more about MGM Brakes, go to mgmbrakes.com. Rick, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Jamie, for having me.
Have you subscribed to the podcast yet? Go to heavydutypartsreport.com today to subscribe to the podcast. And don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and review on the podcast player of your choice. I'd like to remind everyone to focus on cost per mile over purchase price and let's keep those trucks and trailers rolling.